What's going on, people? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the show. As ever, I'm your host, Dan Potts. I'm with lead judges and I'm with Tom Canton. Listen, we're supposed to have Harry and Graham with us, but because it's a Tuesday night or a Tuesday early evening, I should say, we don't have them because they're not available. But they will be back for the regular Monday night slots ASAP for the same old Gooners show. But we've got Tom Canton with us. Tom, how are you, my friend?
Yeah, I'm feeling like Leandro Trossard, right now. Yeah, it's coming off the bench, not even off the bench last night, but I'm very happy to be in your presence.
Likewise, man. It's a pleasure to have you, mate. And you're making Leandro Trossard jealous if you think that he's going to get on the pitch anytime soon, bro. Listen, we're going to talk all things Arsenal. We're going to talk all things last night because I think there's a lot of discussion points, Lee. If I'm honest, I thought it was a game where you were obviously at. Me and Tom weren't at it. I did the watch along on AFTV, and I thought it was a game which was full of drama and discussion points. I couldn't hear it, and I always hate that on the watch-alongs because you don't quite know what the atmosphere is like. You don't quite know what the fans are saying. And whenever I'm watching Monday Night Football, you can normally hear what Carragher and Neville are saying. And I actually love Sky. I think Sky are class with their pundits, and I like Monday Night Football, so I always enjoy listening to it. Let's start with the obvious, shall we? When we did start in 11 predictions in the studio. I don't want to blow my own trumpet, should I say, but I'm the only one who got it right. I literally knew it was going to be the same team, Tomiyasu for Timber. I just knew it would. I know a lot of people predicted that it would be a different lineup. We went through what we wanted to see and also what we thought it was going to be. And I don't think there was any huge surprise as far as I'm concerned. The one concern I had was the lack of Gabriel. So before we go into the game and start talking about tactics, I want to try and break it down because there's quite a lot to talk about. Lee, I want to ask you about this Gabriel situation because for me, best defender last season, I think, and has been used in both games. So it's not like he's, injured or sick or not well from what we can understand, but hasn't made it into the starting lineup. Are you concerned? Would you be concerned if you were Gabriel? And what do you actually think this is down to, judges?
I wouldn't be concerned if I'm Gabriel at the moment. Plenty of games to navigate through the season. I would be a little bit concerned of that why. And I think the reason why is probably because I looked at all the other three players, probably more comfortable on the ball than him. That would be my only reason that they're going with this. I'm going to be really honest. All the away fans that I spoke to and all that weren't happy with the lineup. All I think expected Gabriel to come back in. I'm going to be really honest. If I want to be really honest about it, I want to see like Gabriel reinstated and go back to what we had last season with White on at right back, the two central defenders, and then probably now I think it's going to be Zinchenko. I think because Zinchenko has not been available, I think that's why he's probably gone down this route that he needed that extra person in midfield. I think that Zinchenko will come back in now and will be that person. So I would imagine that it goes back to this three, unless he brings back Tierney and then he'll keep it for one more game. But I think that horses for courses. I think that I actually was surprised with the domination that we had of the game. And probably that was down to the tactic of what we did. I thought we controlled the game up until the sending off. So, and listen, it's worked in the last two games. It's not been free flowing. It's not been great, but it's got the result. The other thing is, and I do think that when he's looking at this team and he's looking at picking a team at this moment, I think he's saying, well, how can I get Kai Havertz in this team? And at the moment, the way to do it is the way he's going. I don't get all the negativity around Havertz, if I'll be honest. I thought he was okay yesterday. I was speaking to someone today about it, and they were saying that he's played two games for Arsenal, and they've been probably safe games. He's played, safe. He's done okay. I hate it when if he has a bad game. I dread the thought if he's going to have a real stinker, because I don't think he's been that bad in the two games that he's had. But I do think that Arteta at the moment is looking to play him in the side, because if you look at it, you bring Gabriel back in the midfield party, Rice and Odegaard. It's then where do you put him in there? And I thought Eddie played well yesterday, apart from making I thought he played well, worked hard, but he's got to take those chances that he had, at least one of them two. But I wouldn't be worried if I was Gabriel at this moment in time. And listen, he kept a clean sheet away at a very, very difficult place. So I think you've got to take the positives from it. And we've won our 2 games. So listen, I think if we was to lose a game on drop points, you know, I can see a lot of criticism coming from the manager and the tactics, because I think that a majority of the Arsenal fans are not too sure about it. But he's got the results, so you have to stick by it. And I think it will be different when Zinchenko's fit.
Tom, it's going to be interesting when Jesus and Zinchenko come back as to if we revert back to the old 4-3-3 of last year, or if we do stick with what we're doing. Where do you stand on this tactically as a new system and formation? Because, yeah, there's team selection concerns or questions, I suppose, is probably a better term. And I think that Gabriel missing out is probably the main one. Trossard, a lot of people are saying, but you can kind of see at the moment that Martinelli and Saka, if he used to play in them wide areas, he doesn't fancy dropping those. He doesn't fancy dropping Eddie or Havertz at the moment. We've won, Tom. We've got 6 points and we're up there with Brighton and Man City. So there's not really anything to be too downhearted about. But do you understand where some of the fans are sitting on one side of the fence by saying this is fantastic and we like to win ugly? Do you also have sympathy for the fans that are saying, I'm not so sure that it's working? Where are you at on either side of that fence, bruv?
I'm on the side of being, you know, very content of where we are right now, and the fact we're winning games, and, you know, on the whole, you know, we're dominating games when we've got 11 men on the field, at least. We'll come on to that a little bit, I'm sure. But against Nottingham Forest, you know, we were very dominant. We restricted both them and Palace to very few chances on the break, you know, proper clear-cut chances. Yes, Palace were taking some shots from range, and they had obviously a greater number of chances towards the end when we were down to 10 men and the swing of the game changed as you would expect it to. But I think that I get the sympathy in the sense of wanting to go back to White, Saliba, Gabriel, Zinchenko when Zinchenko's fit, which he isn't fully yet, and hopefully he will be, you know, for the Fulham game. So I quite like to see what happens when he does come back in. I'm not necessarily, you know, desperate for Partey to vacate the role that he's in, because there's part of me that thinks that what we're doing is we're trying to evolve from last season in some ways. I don't think Partey is right back. I think that if you look at the formations on paper and you put players into a screen and, you know, in the graphics of before the game, and you put him there, but he isn't playing right back. He's playing this hybrid midfielder fullback role that hasn't got a name, basically. And the idea of it is that it gives Arsenal more presence in midfield. It gives the opportunity for counter-attacks to be less dangerous. I say less because you're never going to be able to cut them out entirely. There's always going to be opportunities in the game of football for the opposition, but it's designed to mitigate the opportunities for opponents on the break. So you win the ball higher up the pitch, you prevent the quick turnarounds from happening as much as you can. And I think that if we stood still as a club and just tried to do what we did last season again this season, we would find ourselves going backwards, because everyone's getting better. Everyone's changing themselves. Clubs are improving their squads. Man City are trying to go to another level always. If you stay still doing the same thing, you will find yourselves naturally going backwards. So we need to find a way of evolving and improving and taking this game that we've got to another level. And I think we peaked very early last season in the first half of the campaign with, you know, I think we dropped points in three games, I think it was, before Christmas. We peaked really early and then things trailed off towards the end of the season. Yes, there was injuries, but I think that we're going to see some tweaking going on, a bit like what Man City did at the start of last season, where they were using Rico Lewis quite a bit, and, you know, Stones wasn't really starting in the role that he found himself in towards the end of the season. I think you're going to see us tweaking some things, changing some things at the start of this campaign, and then you'll see everything kind of knit and come together as the season progresses. And I'm fine with that. If we're going towards a peak and we're already winning every game, great, bring it on, keep it going.
Listen, I want to stay with you just for a minute, Tom, because I wanted to ask you, from your knowledge, there's been no Zinchenko. We did see him come on last night. There's been no Jesus, and there's now no Timber either. Do you think that he is shoehorning Kai Havertz into this side, or do you think that he's just playing a different system at the moment without Zinchenko and Jesus, and when they do come back, we'll see different formations and perhaps go back to what we know in the Manchester United game onwards, let's say, for example?
I don't think he's shoehorning Havertz into the team. You know, last night I came away from the game going, what did Havertz do in that game? He didn't grab my attention. He didn't make me think, wow, you know, this is a £65 million signing. Now, this morning I went back and rewatched just Havertz because I was so convinced. I was like, he can't not be doing anything. So I went back and rewatched all of his contributions, and actually, he should have had an assist in the first 2 minutes when he set up Martinelli.
Yeah.
He tackles Schlupp, which creates the opportunity for Nketiah when he hits the post. So that chance doesn't come unless Havertz is there. He had more duels than any other player on the field for the second game running. And there's a clear reason why he was the one that stayed on of all of our attacking players when Arteta made his subs, because he was brilliant in being an outlet up top. He won that really brilliant free kick from Decore in the 92nd minute. And I actually think that when Zinchenko comes back, Havertz might be one of the players that benefits the most from Zinchenko being back in the team and having someone on that left-hand side. Because if we think about it, Havertz was operating with Tomiyasu being that left back, and I like Tomiyasu, but he's nowhere near as technical and progressive and as creative as what Zinchenko brings to that side. So I think that whilst Ødegaard's got Saka and White and Saliba and Partey, that can do the things that they do, I think actually Havertz is going to really benefit from having Zinchenko come back. And I think when you watch a game, you sometimes forget individuals of what they do. When you watch a player in a game, you start to see what that player does. And I think that, I wrote a piece on it today is about just what Havertz did. And he's actually really important for what we're trying to do this season in this system. So no, I don't think he's being shoehorned. I think that he is being used for purpose. And I think the whole idea is to evolve what Granit Xhaka gave us and take that to a new level, not just going forwards, actually defending and out of possession as well. I think Havertz may, ironically, I was chatting to Clive from the Arsenal Vision pod today about this, and we agree that Havertz might end up being a better defender for us than what Xhaka was for us, which is a really interesting point. And I actually think his mobility and technical skill will enable us to improve there.
It's interestingly, isn't it? Because I've started 2 comments here. You've got Clive here who says, "Hi guys, Havertz is spoiling everything," and then you've got another comment from Jay saying, "Karl Havertz is a quality player." That just about sums up the fan base right now. You've got some that think he's top. You've got some that think he's absolutely woeful, and you've got some like me that think he's doing all right. But I'm not excited, and I don't think he's a shambles. I'm kind of need to see more, but I'm not reeling him off yet. It's interesting what Tom says, because Sergio Busquets and Gilberto Silva were very much like that. You'd go away thinking, why are they getting all the praise? They weren't that good, were they? And you look at Gilberto Silva's performance or just Sergio Busquets' performance, and you think, Jesus Christ, they're amazing. Now, I'm not comparing the players because I think they're very different. In fact, I think they're pretty much opposite. But do we expect more from a £65 million player who's playing an attacking midfield position by just doing a few bits here and there, by holding the ball up and potentially doing some pre-assist and passing it nicely? Do we expect more goals and assists potentially for Havertz, or is it just okay for him to keep doing what he's doing throughout this season?
Well, I think, you expect more and you want more, but at this moment in time, he's just come into the club. And it seems there's always one player like this that gets this, you know what I mean? Like, for instance, Declan Rice has been able to just have a couple of half-decent games before a fantastic game yesterday, but is given like a little bit more leeway. I thought, you get it with Eddie as well. I think that, both will always attract criticism. I think Havertz is one of them. Like, Martinelli, who's my favourite player, was very, very quiet yesterday, but no one is having a pop at Martinelli. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, well, looking for excuses or and one of the greatest things yesterday I heard, and I've heard it today as well, but Martinelli didn't play well. But the first thing people say, I heard it on the train yesterday, like, Martinelli didn't play well. Oh, yeah, but his work rate was sensational, like, and he didn't half work hard. Well, I'm telling you that now, Eddie worked very, very hard yesterday. And I'll tell you that Kai Havertz worked very hard yesterday, which people don't appreciate, or not everybody appreciates us. Or didn't see. I'm with Tom. I actually watched the game yesterday. I was at the game, and I thought Havertz played well. And I was talking to someone after the game, and there was someone on the group chat saying he was rubbish. And I thought, well, I'm going to do the same as what Tom's done and have a little look at what he actually done. And quite rightly, as Tom has picked up, like, if Martinelli has a better touch in the first couple of minutes, it's a lovely ball. He knows exactly where Martinelli is, feeds him in. Martinelli has a better touch than that, gets a shot off on his left foot. It could be an assist there. He had a shot that just went wide, a little snapshot I thought was very, very good. I like the dark arts of his game as well, like, you know what I mean? He breaks up play very, very cleverly. I don't know if people notice that, without being too reckless with his fouls. It's just enough to not get a booking. I think he's very, very smart at that. And I felt that yesterday, the decision to keep him on the pitch, when everybody's saying get him off, well, I actually said no, like, because he's the one that can hold the ball up. We weren't going to run in behind him. It was about getting some sort of base and a wall up there, which he done, and that brought in the players when the substitutions come on and all that. Like, I do get. I still argue, and I will say this with Havertz, that because the money's been spent, there will be a little bit more leeway with Arteta than other players. Like, for instance, we talk about Trossard. I think if Arsenal had paid 70 million for Trossard, 65 million for Trossard, I don't think that he would be being used as he is. But I think that sometimes prices do that and do dictate that. I've seen it in football, all levels. You know, if it's his player as well, he signed. I know that he signed Trossard, but if you're spending big money on a player, you know, the chairman's got every right to come down and say, oh, I've just spent £65 million on him. You're not playing him. What's going on? You know, so I do think there's a little bit of pressure on that. And I think at the moment, you know, like, getting these sort of games is not a bad thing. It will be interesting to see when we play Man United. Because if we play Man United with or a team that's got good wide players, what would happen? I felt that Thomas Partey played very, very well yesterday in the defensive side of things. He slotted back in there, wasn't skinned so much as he was against Forest. But I do think that we're a little bit more cautious and defensive wise when we go away from home. We're a little bit more expansive at home. That's why we get caught out a little bit more. But for me, you know, I looked at Havertz yesterday. I didn't think I would. Do you know what? If I've been really honest, if people hadn't criticised him before doing interviews and doing things like that, I probably wouldn't have looked to stick up for him. I probably wouldn't have said anything about his performance. I felt it was okay. But because people are going, oh, he's crap, he's got to be taken off and all that, like, you hear it in the ground and all that, what's he doing? And I felt a little bit, well, I don't know, I think I've got to stick up for him a little bit here, like, you know. I do expect more from him. And I do think that he slows the play down a little bit sometimes with his play. But what he's doing with that, guys, is when he is slaying, what's the one thing he's not doing? He's giving the ball away. You know, so when he has got the ball, maybe, like, because he's got the ball, we're not being counter-attacked so much because we're not giving it away. So I think there's some things to look at and some things not to. For me at this moment in time, look, 2 games in, you know, I don't think it's been great to watch, great performances and whatever, like, but as Tom said earlier, we dominated the game. I think we had 70%, if I'm not right, but it seemed like that. What did Ramsdale have to do? He wasn't like bombarded with. Well, now in the past, I've seen Ramsdale making save after save, and I'm thinking, well, we've had 70% of play, and there Ramsdale's had to make 3 or 4 unbelievable saves or whatever. Like, I think, you know, he was relatively quiet yesterday and didn't really have a lot to do. And what he did do was basic goalkeeping, I think. So you have to say, right, okay, we might lose a little bit going forward at the moment. And one thing that was brought up yesterday, and I have to highlight this, you know, everybody's going, oh, what a fantastic run that we was on last season, you know, and we've done fantastic well, particularly away from home, away to Palace, and then, of course, away to Bournemouth. But our home games were a little bit patchy, you know. Fulham, we was 1-0 down and got just over it at the end, and also Aston Villa. So even though we went on this great run last season, there were a couple of moments that could have gone against us, you know, and people would have looked at it a little bit different. So, listen, I think it'd be very interesting on Saturday to see what happens with the team. I think you stick with the same. I don't think Gabriel will come in, but I'll be shocked that he don't come in against Manchester United. But, you know, sometimes you have to beat teams differently and different ways of doing it. And I do agree with Tom to a certain degree. When you say, oh, you can't stand still, you do that by changing tactics or you change it by bringing in better players. So, you know, and I think that I think we've done that certainly with Declan Rice. I think, I thought he was fantastic yesterday. But for me, Havertz and all that, listen, he's done okay. He's done okay in these last couple of games, and I thought he had a good performance yesterday. And for me, if you work in it must be a little bit disappointing when you're working your socks off like he did yesterday. And I don't know if he goes on social media or whatever. Like, hopefully he doesn't. And there would have been a lot of negatives as well as positives. And I thought that was a little bit harsh on him yesterday, if I be honest.
Yeah, Tom, there's 3 players I do want to mention. I think deserve a mention from last night, mate. One of them is William Saliba. The other one is Declan Rice. And then, of course, Eddie Nketiah, who Lee mentioned earlier. And I want to ask questions on each one because I do think it's worth it. I thought this for a while, but I think, again, we saw why William Saliba is probably one of the best defenders in the league. If not the best defender. A lot of people will say Ruben Dias and Gabriel was an unbelievable partnership. And whilst I agree with that, I do think that Saliba's probably got everything that those two have and potentially more in terms of the higher ceiling. I think in these 2 games, William Saliba has proven to be so important for us. And I wanted to ask you, because I got asked this today, the statement I was given was Arsenal would have won the league if Saliba would have stayed fit. And I wanted to ask you that because I've never actually asked you. There was a big question about it towards the back end of last season. Would we have won the league if Saliba was fit? And I don't want to sit there and blame Rob Holding because I actually don't believe Rob Holding's the reason we didn't win the league. But I do think, I can't help but think, could we, with Saliba, a fit Saliba, have been closer to winning the title? Because he's so important, isn't he? Oh, is that me or... Can you hear him, Lee?
I'm muted. That's what it is.
Oh, sorry, Tom.
There we go. For me, I wouldn't swap Saliba with any other defender on the planet. I wouldn't swap him. There's not a defender out there. Man City have signed Gabriel. I wouldn't swap him for Gabriel. Like, I wouldn't swap him for Ruben Dias. I would not swap him with another centre half. Maybe Gabriel. Show you how good Gabriel is. No, I think that what he brings and what we lost last season was obviously it's more than just his defensive ability, his mobility, his speed, his recovery pace. Even though he made that mistake last night, the recovery tackle was world class in the box, to level things out from the error that he made. And he's a young defender, so errors are going to be there. He's still got a lot to learn as a player, and that's scary from the perspective of other teams looking at what an asset Arsenal have got. But yeah, I agree with you. It's not about bashing Rob Holding. Rob Holding's just not Saliba. He's just not that player. He's not as good as Saliba. He doesn't do the things that Saliba did. And for me, when it comes down to looking at what Arsenal need to improve on, it's adding more talent like Saliba to this group and adding the depth of quality that Saliba brings to this group. And that's why, for me, it's a necessity that between now and the end of the window, we add another defender to this group, because losing Timber for the whole campaign, and I'm just making the assumption that it will be the whole season. I think the club should look at it as assuming he's going to be out for the whole season, is they need to make sure that they bring that competitive depth in so that if for whatever reason Saliba is out of the action, that we have depth so that it isn't going to Rob Holding again. Rob Holding should probably move on, not just for our sake, and I mean that respectfully, but also for his career. He at 27, 28 should be off trying to play somewhere more regularly, and it might be very comfortable to be here at Arsenal, but you don't want to look back on your career and think at 27, 28 it ended because you didn't make the right move to get enough minutes. And I hope that Holding is able to do that between now and the end of the season, end of the summer, sorry. But yeah, Saliba, behind Rice, man of the match, without a doubt.
Yeah, for me, he was, Lee, and I know you love him. And it was you who actually pointed him out to me and said, "Oh, mate, wait till you see this kid. He's so good." And ever since then, I've always stuck in my mind because you were bang on, mate. He's been absolutely phenomenal. And, our question to you as well, like, if he was to actually get injured again, how do we learn from what happened last year? Because it makes me laugh. People will say now, we don't need anybody to come in because Tim is injured. Saliba, if he gets injured, we'll have Tomiyasu and Ben White. Well, Tomiyasu is never fit. Let's be real. He is never fit. And I can't sit there for another season and rely on him to be fit. So if you don't need another defender to replace Timber, why did you want to sign Timber? Didn't need him, apparently. So clearly we do need him, somebody in there, because if Saliba and Tomiyasu are out again, Rob Holding's coming back in, Lee.
Yeah, like listen, me and Adrian had this conversation. Adrian's come on the show a few times, and he
Yeah,
always
big up,
believed,
Adrian.
he always believed that he said like, oh, it wasn't the reason Saliba wasn't the reason we didn't win the league. He actually messaged me the other day and he said, after watching Saliba in these last couple of games, I believe that if he would have stayed fit, we would have won the league. You know what I mean? I think that you don't realise how important he was. It's not just his defending; it's also his on the ball. He gives players around him confidence. He's very, very comfortable on the ball. Plays the right pass. Very, very comfortable. We can build from the back from there, and I also think he gives us a little bit of stability that we haven't got through pace. And it's just a Rolls Royce, and I think he's fantastic player in it. I do think it is a problem. I do think, I'm with you on this. Why sign Timber? Because, well, the reason we signed him is because he's a very, very good player, first and foremost, but also that it does strengthen us in certain areas and if things go wrong. I think, for instance, if and I do think that last season it wasn't just losing Saliba. I do think Tomiyasu is a decent defender, and I think if he'd have come in last time around, he might have gone in at right back, centre half. It wouldn't have been so bad. But I think that you're right what you say about Tomiyasu. But for me, if anything happens to Saliba at this moment in time, I think you've really got to be looking to put Ben White over there. I thought Ben White again, by the way. People keep saying to me that I love Ben White. I do. He's my sort of player. I like the way.
Underrated. Goes under the radar, doesn't he? Goes under the radar every weekend. I don't get it.
No, he's my sort of player. He's my sort of player. I like him. He defends well. He's got that horrible little side to him that I've always liked in a footballer. I can't help it, but I do like him. And, he leaves his foot in at times and things like that. But I think that he can go into central defence. He's done very well in the last couple of games. But I think that we have covered here with Tomiyasu. I think Tomiyasu and Saliba going out last season was a bigger blow than what people realise. Tomiyasu, I thought, come in yesterday, does a job. You know what I mean? And sometimes squad players, you ain't got to be these wonderful, wonderful players. They just got to come in and do a job. And I think that's why Eddie does a job. That's why I think he's a good squad player. And I do think that Tomiyasu can do that as well. But you ain't going to get. I'm going to agree with Tom also on this. You can scout the whole of Europe now. You ain't going to get a good replacement or someone better than Saliba. Once you lose Saliba, whatever happens, whoever is coming in, the standard's going to drop a little bit because he's that bloody good. We haven't never replaced Patrick Vieira at Arsenal. Why? Because he's bloody that good. You know what I mean? We've got a gem of a player here. And I'm with Tom. I wouldn't swap him for anybody in the world. I think he's that good. I always think like when you watch football, and like people will turn around and go, give you stats and all that. I think the eye is is the best thing. You know what I mean? And when I first see him, I went, wow. There's not many players. If you look back through all the years of put you and said to you, it gives you the wow factor. And I can tell you, Declan Rice, as good as he is, I've not gone and said, wow, what a great player. I like him as a player, but I'm not gone, wow. When I first see Patrick Vieira for the first time, I went, wow. I'm going to be honest. When I first see Thierry Henry, I never see that. I did see it with Nicolas Anelka, and I see it with this kid as well. I haven't seen. It takes a long thing for us to go, oh, wow, what a great player that he is. You know what I mean? Cesc Fabregas was another, by the way. But I do think that he's a very, very talented young boy. And listen, he made the mistake. Yes, everybody's going mad about it. Like, he actually made the mistake that makes the up for the tackle. And listen, could have gone wrong, but it didn't. You know what I mean? Because I think that he has that power of his recovery and things like that as well. But I do think that Arsenal need to strengthen somewhere along the line. But again, is there a timber about that I'm going to be really honest, can play right back really well, left back really well, play inverted very, very well. And I'm pretty sure he's going to be a bloody damn good goalkeeper as well because he just seems to play every position. So to get that sort of player in is going to be very, very difficult. But I tell you, I don't think we should be sleeping on Nketiah as well. I thought he come on yesterday. He looks. I'm liking what I see in him as well. Like a player that come in last season and steadied the ship when the Rob Holding thing wasn't working. So I still think there's a role for him. As I say, hopefully they get two more players in. I I'd be disappointed if we don't, because I do think that it's fantastic when I hear Mikel going, "Oh yeah, I want this for the goalkeepers and that," which is fair enough for Aaron Ramsdale and Raya, but like there isn't that for Saka at this moment in time. But what I tell you was another good thing. It was good to see Saka come off yesterday. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
it was. Yeah,
don't want to
and
keep
well
being
done to him, by the way, for equaling Mercy's record. I thought that was class, and the way he come across was great. But listen, I've got to mention, I've got to say, and I do think we do need a couple of players, and perhaps we'll mention that towards the end of the pod. But you know, for me, Tom, Declan Rice has been our best player in the last couple of games. I think he's been outstanding, mate, and he's actually played in a 6 and an 8. In both games, which is mad because he was at the kind of left of the diamond and then at the base of the diamond in both of these games, and it's proven to me that he can play in both positions and be not just effective there, but be one of the best players there in both positions. I was so impressed with him last night, mate. I thought he was literally everywhere, and against Forest, I thought he was one of the best players. Now, what I liked about it was not just what I see on the ball and how comfortable he is, but we have Partey himself and Saliba that all look so comfortable on the ball in that area of the pitch. We've spoken about Saka and Martinelli a lot over the last couple of years and 18 months about how good they are at that end of the pitch. I think we've really got some solidarity now and some leadership qualities from him also. I like everything about him on the pitch, but I like everything about him off it. And to be fair, I did when he was at West Ham. I just didn't really want to say it too loud because I can't really deal with West Ham fans. But I actually do feel
that you mix with anyway, Dan.
He's not the ones I mix with, like Lawless and co. But listen, he is a top talent, mate. He's an absolute diamond midfielder. And I thought his interview was great. I thought it was great the way that he was really happy at the club and he felt like he wanted to learn. And he was talking about how Arteta can have a vision of him and how he's got a vision in this side, how he wants to get better and score more goals. Tom, there's not really anything I've seen so far or heard from this lad that I'm concerned about. I think it's well worth every penny so far, mate. What do you make of his performance?
I don't know what I can add to that, Dan. You know, he summed it up pretty darn perfectly. Yeah, he is without a doubt proven to be the signing that we wanted him to be. It's only been 2 games, and I suppose that is kind of the dichotomy between him and Havertz, is that within 2 games we know what we've got in Rice. You know what you're getting from Rice. He is the player that you don't need to watch individually to be able to appreciate what he's doing. You can see it and you get it, and that's a credit to him. And I think that what's exciting is that he was a world-class and is world-class for me and was world-class at West Ham under a very, in my opinion, limited coach with limited players around him. And he's moved into a position where he is, in my opinion, under a coach with world-class coaching in terms of improving players. Hence why Arteta's track record improving so many members of our squad is so well documented at this stage. And I think that he is going to learn things that he never would have ever dreamed of being able to learn and understand whilst with West Ham. He would have done that as well had he moved to Manchester City and been under Pep Guardiola as well. But you just hear him speak in his interviews and he talks about what he's learning and how he's looking at the game in different ways and the elements to his game that he's started to add. And that's impressive. From his side of things, it's impressive to hear about Arteta and what his coaching staff and he are doing with him. And it was always going to be a case of, is Rice going to take Arsenal to a team that can compete more competitively with Manchester City? Or is Arsenal going to turn Rice into a player that can help them do that? And I think what's great is it seems to be more of the latter. That Rice is a fantastic player, but it's the combination of him with Arsenal that makes us the beast that we're going to be with him in the team, not Rice adding to Arsenal, turning us into something else. It was always going to have to be the two-way street. And I always saw that with a player like Rice coming in at the situation that he was at West Ham, that his game would go to another level at Arsenal. And I think gradually over the course of this season, we're going to see him improve and take his abilities and his output to a new level with us. And I think that that's a credit, as I say, to both him and the club for doing that.
Yeah, Lee, it was an unbelievable performance, and I think what Thomas said there is spot on. I was a big fan, man, of Declan Rice last night, and I think it's really encouraging not just to see him playing well, but to see him playing well this early. You know, we've mentioned Kai Havertz and some of the others. Got to give him time. This lad ain't needed any time, mate. He's absolutely phenomenal. I've been so impressed by everything about him. And you know, sometimes, Lee, where you see a player and you just have confidence they're not going to lose the ball. They're going to do something with it. They're being given the ball by everybody. They're being relied upon. I'm seeing all these things already from Declan Rice, and I'm getting quite excited, judges. I can't lie.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I liked his performance against Manchester City in the Community Shield as well, because I think that what he done, he grew into the game. He started just couldn't get into it at first, and he just got himself into it by a couple of passes here, neat passes and all that. What I think I like about him is that he's streetwise to the game of football. He knows how the game goes, how it's going to go, and how it plays. I think that two things that I've been more impressed with him, and I've spoken to a few West Ham fans about that, is he's a very, very clever boy, very, very clever. He knows how fans work, so he uses that to his advantage. Like after the game, he comes over, giving it to the fans and things like that. Now, listen, fans love all that. You know what I mean? So I think that he gets onto that, and he does that really, really well. But also, he's I think some of the things that he says in interview are very, very good. Like I thought his interview yesterday, and I've watched it last night, and I thought, you clever little sod. He's gone, I was right up for that game against Crystal Palace and all that.
Yeah.
Like, you know, right up for it. Like I really wanted it. But what he's actually basically saying is that, you know, Crystal Palace are those sort of games when, you know, you're not at it, you can lose. Right. So what, you know, like you're going to be up for a Man United game, aren't you? You're going to be up for the Spurs game. It's just natural. But what you ain't, some professional player, what they, I think they've been quite up for Palace away on a Friday night or Palace away on a Monday night. But what he actually said was, oh, I'm buzzing for this. I wanted it, like, you know. And I think that he's a very, very clever in what he says. And I thought, oh, yeah, I like that. And look, if, you know, fans are going to like it. So he's very, very shrewd on what he does. And I think yesterday, he just made the job look easy. Like he made the job look simple. He got himself about the pitch, box to box, side to side. I see him at one time, you know, because we was down that corner, left back covering a move there. He does it graciously, and also it's not easy to be running around a football pitch for 90 minutes and shows you what he's done. And I think in the first couple of games he wasn't quite fit, you know, coming to it late and all that. Like I think he's just going to hopefully now get better and better and better. And what was really, really good about yesterday, and I do like this about him, is that he played a couple of positions yesterday. He played that position like when he went box to box. He then went into the six, and then when Thomas Partey came in, they played as a double pivot.
Yeah,
and he knows how to play that role because he does it at England as well. Like, you know, and it's like, right, our job now is to protect the back four and then, like, you know, push it out to whatever. I thought it was a really, really intelligent performance from him yesterday, like, you know, but he will get the praise a little bit more because everybody likes Declan, you know what I mean? And I think that because of the way he comes across and the way he does that, and also I do think going a little bit to Havertz, a little bit to him, body language. He has got this body language of like, you know, I'm watching him yesterday, like, you know, he's like in all of us as well, if I can put it like that. You know, I just like the way the demeanour about him as well. Like, you know, I wouldn't say like, you know, at this moment in time he's my favourite player, but like, because it's very hard to say like after 3 games you got your favourite player, like, you know what I mean? But you can I reckon by this time next season he's going to be everybody's favourite because he's just got that way about him, like, you know. And West Ham fans have said that as well, like, you know. I even think, dare I say it, you know, he's been a little bit critical of West Ham and even Gareth Southgate by saying like, oh, I'm learning so much at the Arsenal now, like, you know what I mean? I know, but what he's actually doing, he's not really critical. He's just getting himself on side with every Arsenal fan. Oh, I love that. And I think it's very, very clever. Very, very clever.
Yeah, I'm a big fan, and if I'm honest, I'm probably going to get one of the shirts, and he's going to be the guy on the back of my shirt, 100% Rice.
Why? Because it's only 4 letters.
Yeah, it's cheap, it's cheap apparently. No, they don't do that anymore.
That's all you're going to get, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I used to do that, didn't they? Oh, it's £1 a letter. I wish it was. Like, that kit is unreal now.
They do. A favourite.
I like the third kit now as well as the home kit. I don't know what one to get now.
I see a few of I see the match worn one, you know, like the players one yesterday. A few of the guys were wearing that one yesterday. Just fits a little bit better, if I'll be honest. It's sort of like, if you're a slimmer person, it just fits a little bit better. a very, very nice shirt. Like, very nice.
It
shirt.
is, man. I can't lie, and I like the shorts as well. I'm gonna walk. It'll turn up into a full kit wanker soon.
No,
You know what I mean?
blame you. White shorts or blue one? What ones did you go for?
White. I think I like the white ones.
Oh,
You know?
they're stunning, aren't they? Like, you know what I
They're
mean?
so nice, aren't they? The white ones. Anyway, enough about spending money that I haven't got on kits. Let's talk about Eddie, Tom, just quickly, because again, a player who I thought played a good game, and a few people on the WhatsApp group said he was rubbish. Now I know finishing he could have done better. The first one, I'm not going to be too harsh on him because I thought he created that on his own, and I know it was a hit the post, and maybe he should have scored it. Well, he should have scored it. He's a little bit more unlucky. I can't forgive him for the second chance. You've got to put that in 6 yards out. You just have to score that, in my opinion. But is it unfair for me to say that he was actually more effective than both Saka and Martinelli in this game?
Oh, it's a good question. Arguably, I mean, without him, we didn't win that. You know, he's the one that won the penalty, and there was that quickness of thought and movement to win the penalty that got it. I absolutely agree with you on the second chance. It has to score that. It's a really bad miss, and hopefully one that isn't affecting him. I don't think it was. Obviously, the penalty chance came after that, so that will give him a boost. The first one, as you say, he's really unfortunate with that, actually, because he does so well to get through, spins away from the defender, gets into that position, and it's a difficult finish, and he very, very nearly pulls it off. I wanted him to start this game. I think it's important that you build momentum and form into players. And after he scored, a very good goal against Nottingham Forest, you want him to do that. You want him to get into those positions. He's the number 2 striker at the end of the day. If Gabriel Jesus was fit, I'm sure that Gabriel Jesus would be starting at this point. And Nketiah, as I've been saying, needs to change the discussion around him. We need to stop having this conversation about, is he good enough to fill in for Jesus? He needs to change the discussion to say, is Jesus going to get back in? That's what we need to be talking about. We're not talking about that yet because Nketiah has not done enough to get us into the position where we're having that conversation. But, as you say, he was, more influential on the game than Martinelli and Saka was in the end. And he had that biggest impact on the game to win us that penalty. It's interesting because you'd back him to score in that position, 9 times out of 10. That's usually what his bread and butter is, in the 6-yard box, in and around that box. He scores. So I don't really know why there's all of a sudden this rhetoric that he can't finish his dinner, because we know that the case is that you put the ball in that position with Eddie and usually he puts them away. So I'm not concerned because I know from watching Eddie over the last 5 years that, coming through the academy, that you get him into those positions, you bank on him to score, and I still would. And if he had that chance again, I would bank on him to try and score that chance again. But if it comes to if in the game against Fulham that he's missing again, then we can have another conversation. But the first isn't a sitter. The second certainly is a sitter. And he should score, but without him, we don't win that game yesterday. So I also liked his play in the wide areas. I thought he drifted out wide really well and got into positions that he's not necessarily done in recent seasons. So there's definitely an improvement there. But if the discussion is, would Arsenal be better with Gabriel Jesus, I still think the answer is yes.
Yeah, listen, I think that's absolutely key. And for me, I've never wanted Eddie to be the number 1 striker. I've never thought he'd be good enough, and I don't see us winning a Premier League title with him up top. However, I've never denied that Eddie could have a position in this squad, Lee. And it was funny because I spoke to my friend today, and I said, Eddie's actually had 2 all right games, in my opinion, against Forest and now Palace. And if you combine his 2 performances in both of those games, he would have been brilliant, because I think he scored against Forest. He took his chance well. This time he didn't take his chance well. The other time I thought he ran around really well. This time I thought he was not just running around, but showed a lot of intensity and energy, and actually was very effective. If you was combining those performances, you'd have a great performance. And unfortunately, I think that's Eddie's problem. He doesn't always have all of the attributes for his game. And I think that people forgive Jesus for missing chances because of what he brings to the side. And I'm not so sure that Eddie brings that to the side all the time. He does it in glimpses. And I think that's the only thing that lets Eddie down sometimes, is his lack of consistency. But I don't think he was bad last night. I'm sorry. I don't think he was.
No, he certainly wasn't bad. Look, listen, I think that his frustration, because it was a fantastic football move for the chance he had from 6 yards, and he should bury that. You know what I mean? There's no excuses for that. Like, I don't really know what he was trying to do. Just smash it, you know what I mean, or whatever. Like, and listen, he's had 3 chances now. He scored 1 goal. 1-1 against Forest. I thought he'd done very, very well. Again, I'll go back to Community Shield. He come on as a sub there and contributed. I felt he contributed yesterday. His hold-up play was very, very good. Link-up play was not too bad at all. I think, like, you know, the first goal one where it hits the post, I think when you actually see it in on TV and all that, it's very, very unlucky. Like, you know, great little turn. He's made it himself, and that one I would say just a little bit unlucky. I'm going to be really honest. If he scores that, he scores the second one as well. I think that he would have scored that one. Like, you know, and I just think that as a forward, and when you're in those sort of games and in those sort of positions and all that, you need to score those goals. You need to do that, like, you know. And I think that if he'd have scored last night, I think he would have been up there with the man of the matches of Rice and Saliba. Like, I really do. I thought that he worked his socks off in the end there. Like, you know, as it happens, he come off because I don't know if you noticed it on TV, but they tried to put one in the channel and he tried to run for it and he's physically gone. You know, so. As a fan, you can't ask for no more than that. He's working his socks off and everything like that, and I thought put in a very, very good shift. But he's got the contract, he's got the 14. When it comes down to those chances, that, I'm afraid, is your bread and butter. That is the chance. You've got to take those chances. So listen, I think Eddie's always going to have a tough deal at Arsenal for whatever reason. I think, you know, but I think he's a fantastic squad player. I think that squad players are very, very important to the team and to do well in. Like, you know, I think he done a fantastic job last season when Eddie got when Gabriel got get it right in a minute. Gabriel Jesus got injured last season. I thought he covered that situation really, really well. Yes, we was all desperate for Jesus to come back, but we didn't miss him like I think I was thinking that we was gonna. And have I said we're desperately missing Jesus? Yeah, I think that, as Tom alluded to, that we are missing him, but I'm not actually going, I can't wait for him to come back. Can't wait for him to come back, you know, at this moment in time. So, listen, I do think there's a little bit of, can I dare say that, you know, the people that are not convinced with Arteta look at it, well, when he's picking Eddie, there's a chance for a little bash there, a little dig. I don't know.
Potentially there is the link between him giving him the 100k and the 14 shirt, and when it don't go well for him, it's just something else to say that hasn't gone well for the manager. But I do think that there's definitely the start of this season, the 2 games I've seen, there's a place for Eddie in the squad. I think we need better. I think we need a striker. I've said that. But I don't think what Eddie's doing at the moment is an absolute shambles. And I've said the same about Havertz. You know, that's why I've mentioned these players today, because there's such split decision between a lot of our players of late. And I think there's some that everyone are absolutely set on. And there's a couple that just people are juggling with and on the side of the fence with. Listen, Tom, I wanted to ask you quickly before we do come to the last part of the show about Tomiyasu. I didn't think he had a great game, mate. A lot of people said he was really good, and I thought I just didn't see that. I thought he got beaten by Jordan Ayew about 4 times in the first 25 minutes, and thought, wow, you need to pick it up, lad. You're not doing too good here. And I wanted to talk about the 2 yellow cards. The first one I thought was harsh to give it to Tomiyasu. It could have been to any of the players because they were all time wasting. I think it's pathetic, by the way, that Arsenal were doing that. They know the rules. You're going to get a yellow card. Oh, now we've got one. Whoops. Won't do that again, will they? Second one was not a yellow card. Now, what I will say is, in the watch along, I did not have myself, Sharoy, Turkish, or James say, what the hell's he sent him off for? Because I think all of us thought he'd pulled his shirt. And the referee has seen that first glimpse and not been able to see it back like we all have. And that was my defense for a referee. Now, I hate the referees. I'm never going to defend them. But that was my kind of justification as to why he's giving him a yellow card, because he thinks he's tugged his shirt, and Jordan Ayew's gone down like he's been shot like they all do, and that's why he's got the yellow card. So I think it's harsh looking back at it. I think it's really soft, in fact, that he's been sent off for it. And what's even more frustrating, Tom, is that you can't VAR a yellow card that leads to a sending off, which I think is a bit of a crazy rule, but I understand that that's the rule. What did you make of it all, bro?
Yeah, on his performance, I agree in the sense that he didn't stand out to me. You know, you look at the performance of White and Saliba and Partey in that unit, and they all obviously outshone Tomiyasu. I agree. Ayew had his number on a few occasions, and sadly, he was a bit of a victim of Partey and Havertz's time wasting, because whilst he didn't really time waste, he was the player holding the ball when the seconds ticked by. So I know why he got the yellow. I haven't got an issue with him getting the first yellow card. I think, as we say, he's a bit of a victim of the others time wasting rather than him time wasting. But it's just, I find it kind of ludicrous that incident is what is justifying a second yellow. You know, we've seen McAllister sent off for a challenge that I don't think was a red card. I think Tim Ream was arguably hard done by, you know, in the Fulham game as well. Like, I think they say they're raising the bar regarding what it constitutes for a penalty, but it seems they're lowering the bar for red cards and what they would constitute giving a second yellow for. And I think that a red card is far more game damaging than a penalty is. Like, if you're going to raise the bar for something, make it harder to be sent off rather than to give away a penalty. Because I think that these are the types of incidents which are going to have a bigger impact on, you know, the flow of games, on the outcomes. That said, ironically, Liverpool with 10 men won, Chelsea with 10 men against 10 men lost, and Arsenal with 10 men also won. So there's arguments that teams are winning with 10 men at the same time. So correlation's not the same as causation, but it is an interesting kind of fact along that line. But I suppose there was another team that I think lost with 10. Was it Fulham? Fulham did lose, didn't they, when they went down to 10 men? Yeah. So I think when it comes to that decision, it's frankly, it's as soft as it's ever going to be. And it's a worry. But I'd rather than getting all worked up about the fact that that incident happened, I'd rather focus on how Arsenal reacted to going down to 10 men.
Yeah.
Because in that moment, under the cosh, it was always going to swing in Palace's favour, you know, in terms of them getting more possession and them being more emboldened to come forwards, them being able to add another attacking player on. But the way in which we dealt with that, the way in which Arteta substituted certain players and brought on controllers like Zinchenko and Jorginho, who then gave us back some possession, relieved pressure in certain moments. Saliba, White, Partey at times, Rice was stunning, I thought, in those last 20 minutes of the game in particular. You know, we just defended the box. And yes, I find myself frustrated that sometimes we were just clearing the ball to nobody and they were just going to come back. But I was never really worried that we were going to concede. Do you remember, like Anfield last year? It was almost inevitable that we were going to concede. And it was going to be a 2-2 or even a 3-2 defeat. But I never felt like that yesterday. And that was the same for the Forest game. Like when we went to 2-1 and we only had that one goal lead, I never felt like Forest were going to score the second. And I think that's the difference between this Arsenal team and the team of last season from the early indications, is that we're a bit more resolute than we have been in the past. And that's a credit to the defence and the defensive coaching as well.
Leo, I've got to ask you, because you were there. I don't know what everyone's thoughts were in the ground when the red card went out. I must admit, me and Turkish were the only ones that were chilled. I think Sharoy was a bit pissed. I mean, as pissed as Sharoy can be, which is quite relaxed, pissed off. James was losing his nut, mate. James was going absolutely mental when he watched it back. And I must say that the reason I didn't go mental is because the referee has not watched it back and got it wrong this time. So I wasn't losing my head over this one, but I wanted to get your opinions on it, mate. What was it like in the ground?
Listen, I from where it looked like he tugged him back, and you have to say, right, okay, it's a sending off. Once if I watched it on TV, I'd have been absolutely going mad about it. Like, but the most annoying thing for me was about 2 minutes later, Havertz went down the left-hand side and got taken out by Ayew, and he knew that he was on a yellow card, and he didn't give him the booking. There was a little bit more fault into that one, and I felt that looking back in it, maybe like I think he couldn't wait to send him off. And I do look at that and think, look, you know, when you're on the yellow card, sometimes I've seen it in the past with Rodri, I've seen it in the past with other players. If they're on the yellow card, they try and do everything they can to keep them on. You know, I think there was one. Who was the one that dived in? It was a silly diving in. Was it Chelsea? I can't remember who dived in on a tackle. And you think, what the hell was he doing? Like, you know what I mean? He got sent off for a second yellow, and you can't argue with it. You can't argue. I can't get what game it was now. Anyway, it don't matter. And you think, well, you know, he's dived in there. You can't he's not going to get the ball. I think it was a West Ham player, wasn't it? Was it the West Ham game? He dived in, and you think, what the hell is he doing? You know what I mean? There's no defence for it. The one on Tommy Asu, like, you know, he could do. What is also annoying about it is, VAR can't get involved. VAR can't get involved, but they can get involved on an offside, which is like, you know, like got to get rulers out and things like that. The penalty they got involved with, I know, like it's against Spurs Brentford. You know what I mean? Like, was it clear and obvious? I don't think so. But when that decision comes there, I also think that, you know, VAR or whoever the authorities have got a duty of care for the game of football, because that game of football changed after that, you know, and could ruin a game of football, like, you know, because at the end of it, not a lot's going to be made of it because Arsenal won the game. But if Arsenal had lost that game, that could come back and bite us long term down the road. You know, it's never a sending off. And I will be looking at this referee over the next few weeks when there's people on yellow cards, and to see if he's as righteous and as quick to get out his second yellow card as he was for us. I'm going to tell you that now. The chances it won't be, but I will say this: he give us the penalty, and another thing which is stupid about VAR. I've looked at it a couple of times. If, which it wasn't a penalty, by the way, but if he had to give a penalty for them, that wouldn't have been. That would have been VAR wouldn't have got involved. So, you know, so you have to say that as poor as he was on that decision, he was quite brave on a couple of others. So, frustrated. But, you know, the other good thing about it, we didn't have a sending off the whole of last season. So we're not used to going down to 10 men, but we done it and we dug in. And as Tom said,
remember we went through a patch the year before where we got like 4 or something within like 6 weeks or something. So we have improved on that for sure. You're thinking, by the way, Leon, of the West Ham Chelsea Aguerd red card was what you were thinking.
You know, I mean, you can't argue with that one. You know what I mean? But I think there was justification to have a moan about it. And, do you know, like, you know, the rules are funny in football. Like, you can't even appeal against that yellow card. You know what I mean? Even you even know he's been totally, so he has to sit out a game of football.
I think that's got to change for me. I understand if you can't appeal a yellow card, but if it leads to a red card, you should be able to.
I think you know, he's got to sit off a game ban there, knowing he's done nothing wrong. You know, and realistically, you know, they say about, we're going to clamp down on this and clamp down on that. Well, you know, it was a little bit of cheating from Palace, really. He got him sent off. He knew that he was on a booking, made a meal of it, you know, but... And
14 yellow cards, mate, so far. There's only two game weeks gone. 14 yellow cards, apparently. So it's going to be a lot of yellow cards.
By the letter of law, I'm not going to criticise the first one. You know, Arsenal know the rules. You know, one, you know the rules.
No, same. I'm not either.
Two, you know they're going to be a lot more vigilant about it over the first couple of months. So don't do it. Havertz done it as well. Just kicked the ball away, like, you know, and that was a booking. He could have been actually sent off because he was the one.
That was the worst attempt to kick the ball away I've ever
seen.
You
know what I mean? So you know, it's ridiculous. And at the end of it, you know, I was saying earlier on, you know, they've got like multiple balls around the ground. You know what I mean? It ain't like you're actually going to gain an advantage from it, like, you know. So listen, I'm for all this. You know what I mean? Look at the frustration of us last season against Newcastle. You know, that won't happen again now. Like, you know, so 9 times out of 10, it's going to be for us. But and poor Tommy Asu, I'm going to be really honest. Was he just didn't really have an option at first. He's looking to throw it. You know,
yeah. I felt a bit sorry for him. I don't understand. I understand why he's giving a yellow card to ref, but to give it to Tommy Asu, he probably should have given it to Havertz. Because he was the one holding on to it for about half hour.
Then he dropped it. You know what I mean? That was the time then to go, like, that's a yellow card.
It was.
You know what I mean? That was the blatant waste of time. But you know, so listen, I've got no arguments with the first one. It's just, you know, wrong. Poor old Tommy was at the wrong time at the wrong place. You know what I mean? Like, you know, and the funny thing is, you leave the ball there, and if you're on the yellow card, I ain't gonna get it. I ain't gonna get that ball because I'm gonna get a yellow card here. Like, no one's gonna go and get the ball though. If he dropped it there, who are you going to actually give the yellow card to? If no one
Yeah,
goes
it's a
and
great
picks it up,
point.
like, sorry, ref, I ain't going because you're going to book me straight away now. So, like, the ball's there, like,
Yeah.
everybody's standing around. You know what I mean? Now so it's a
That's
little
true.
bit of a
They're
weird
probably
one.
players are going to start doing that, though, aren't they? That's the
No,
thing.
I ain't because you're going to give me a yellow card.
That's so true. Yeah, that's so true. Listen, to round up the show, Tom, I'll come to you with this one. Because the window is still open, even though the season started. People forget that the window is still open. Mohammed has asked, which two players would you want to see Arsenal sign before the transfer window shuts? And he's put in brackets, realistically possible deals. Now, it's funny because since David Raya, we haven't had any outfield signings since Declan Rice, which seems like weeks ago now. There has been links, but nothing too heavy, Tom, if I'm honest with you. Kudus was linked, and it looks like West Ham, I think, are favourites to get Kudus now, which is a bizarre one. There's rumours of Fati from Barcelona, I keep hearing as well. So those positions are ones that Arsenal are clearly looking at, it seems. The centre-back situation we've spoken about. And I can't help but thinking that Mikel Arteta's interview saying that we've got two world-class goalkeepers now, or two class goalkeepers, whatever way you want to look at it. We need that in every position. Well, I can't see two right wingers. I can't see two centre forwards that we all want because everyone keeps moaning about them. And I can't see two box-to-box midfielders because Rice is the only one we've got. I think Havertz, Smith Rowe and Vieira are very, very attack-minded. And of course, Jorginho, El Neni and Partey are very defence-minded. So other than Rice, who can play in his position, other than Saka, who can play in his, we've mentioned Timber and now he's injured. And then up top. So there's like 4 positions there still that we ain't really sure about. And then we're not going to get 4 in the next 9 days, I wouldn't imagine. But how would you answer that best in terms of Mohammed's question there of a couple of players that we might get in before the end of the window, bruv?
I'd love to sign Kudus. I think it's tied to the Balogun situation. I think if we move Balogun on, I think there's a good chance you may see us going for a forward, which I'd love us to do. I think Kudus should be that player. And then I would like to see Mohamed Simakan from RB Leipzig brought in defence because he can play right back, he can play right-sided centre-back. And I think, that's the perfect dichotomy of what we want, from that position. So, yeah, I would like to see those two. I think they're realistic. It would be a combined about 70 to 75-ish million pounds to do both of them. But if we move on, Tierney could move on before the end of the window, still potentially. If we move on him, if we move on Balogun, we've still got to move on Pepe. We've still got to move on Lokonga, Tavares, Cedric. Have still got to go. So if we can move all the players on we need, I think we'll get at least one. The issue isn't money. From my understanding, I know we talk a lot about FFP. The issue is numbers. We have too many players at the club, and it's difficult to move for a player whilst you've still got that many players on the books. And I think the club have spent, quite a lot of time to try and move players on, but it's very difficult when the interest in those players isn't significant to do that. So I have a lot of sympathy for what we're doing, because whilst we're all very much wanting to sell players for more money and we're scrutinising Edu for not getting better money for players, at the same time, you're in a catch-22, because how can you get good fees for players when the interest in those players isn't there in as much as we would like it to? If we end up getting £35 million for Balogun, which I think it will be about between 35 and 40, I think is what we might end up getting for him. I know people want 50, but realistically, I just don't think that's going to happen. If we end up getting as close to, if not a little bit more than 40 million for Balogun, I'd be very happy with that. I'd like at least 30 million for Tierney, but I don't know who's going to pay that. I don't know who is out there anymore. Newcastle have got their signing. Villa are looking at other players. There's just no interest, which is, I think it is to some degree surprising. But for all of the hype and all of the talk about how much we love Tierney, I am surprised how little interest there is in him. And there is very little interest from what I understand. Lokonga, I think that you may see some movement in France with him between now and the end of the window. And Tavares has got offers, and it's kind of like they're just working out where best for him to go, and fees as well. And I think if we can get around 15 million for Tavares, I'd be happy with that as well. That's more than double what we paid. So happy there. But that's kind of where we're at. I think it's a case of got to get players out to get players in.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Lee. I think we do need to get players out. And there's sort of crazy link the other day with Forest for Tavares for £30 million. And I just started laughing. I thought there's no way we're getting him £30 million sold. I agree with Tom. I think the lack of interest in Tierney is probably to do with maybe his injury record, as well as the fact that no one's really got £35 million to spend on a left back. I think Newcastle was potentially the only people that were interested in that. So we might end up keeping him. I'll be okay with that. I think everyone knows that I like Tierney, but I do think we've got to get rid of some of the others, man. I think Pepe is time's up at Arsenal. Lokonga, Tavares, Cedric, Runnelson's finally left Arsenal because his contract runs out at the end of this year and he's gone to Cardiff on loan, which was a strange signing. I hear today that Brighton interested in Lokonga. I saw on Sky Sports News today, which I found bizarre. But that's another player that we could be looking to get rid of. We've got to get some players out, and then we've got to get a couple more in, Lee, if I'm honest.
That's it. I think Tom hit the nail right on the head there. Those players have got to go before anything comes in. It's not. I agree. It's not about money. It's all, a lot of wages got to come off of it as well. Like, you know, but you're gonna. What I think, which is the big worry, is you can only, I think, have 25 or whatever. Like, you're going to have some players that are not going to be participating in the Premier League and the Champions League. That's not healthy for the squad of players around. So for me, that is a priority now, getting those players out the window. And then I reckon the last week, if anything comes up, I think Arsenal will go in, like, you know, and I'm pretty sure that they will do. But at this moment, over the next sort of 5, 6, 7 days, we as a club need to be seeing players go.
Fair enough. Listen, been a pleasure. Thank you all so much for joining us. Tom, always a pleasure, my friend.
Yes,
Make sure
Tom.
you get over to the Gooner Talk and go and follow Tom. He's live every morning and every evening, pretty much. So make sure you go and follow his content. And well played, Tom. Thanks so much for coming on, bro.
No, it's my pleasure. Always a pleasure to chat with you both. So thanks for having me.
Legends, man, legends. Big up Lee as well. Big up the chat. Make sure you do us a favor. Make sure you smash a like on this video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Get us towards the next target, which is 40k. And if you can come do the same over with me, I'm going to be live at 8 o'clock tonight on my channel with a Race for Europe show, talking to all the boys about the football. It's going to be lit and heated. So make sure you're over there. It's Football's 12th Man podcast, on my way to 12k people. So that'd be amazing if you could come and show some love over there tonight. And let me rip into Lawless for allowing him to sell us Declan Rice, which I just cannot wait to talk to him about, because I'm sure he's buzzing at his performances of last. He obviously wants him to do well because he likes Declan Rice. So that should be a fun show. Take it easy, people. Smash a like on your way out. Make sure you go follow Tom and the guys, and hopefully I'll see some of you at 8 p.m. on my channel tonight. Take it easy, and of course up the Arsenal. Laters.